The equator. It's one of the most iconic imaginary lines on Earth, a perfect belt wrapping around our planet's waistline. But while it shows up clearly on globes and maps, how often do we actually think about what life is like along it? I decided to change that. Over 5 days, I set out to follow the equator not from a satellite's view, but from the ground. From the mountains of Ecuador to the jungles of Colombia, the plains of Kenya to the crater lakes of Uganda, and the rainforests of Indonesia, I traced this invisible line across cultures, climates, and continents. What I found was a journey that mixed intense heat, breathtaking nature, fascinating traditions, and surprisingly diverse lifestyles, all bound by a common latitude. Day 1. Ecuador. Standing on the line between worlds. My journey began in Quito, Ecuador's capital, one of the closest cities to the equator. A short drive north took me to Mitad del Mundo, the middle of the world monument. Here, a thick yellow line runs along the ground, marking the Earth's halfway point. 1 foot in the northern hemisphere, 1 in the southern. Of course, I had to take the cliché photo arms outstretched, straddling the hemispheres. But the experience went far beyond a tourist photo op. The nearby Intinan Museum shared fascinating insights into indigenous astronomical knowledge. Long before GPS, Ecuador's native peoples understood the equator's significance. I learned that at the equator, the Coriolis effect supposedly changes water's spin direction, a common demonstration. Though later I'd learn it's more theatrical than scientific. What's real is the near-constant 12-hour day and night. The sun rose and set with clockwork precision, casting perfectly vertical shadows. Beyond the marker, I explored local markets filled with tropical fruit I'd never tasted. Narangilla, uvilla, and tree tomato. Life here revolves around agriculture and family. Despite being perched on the equator, Quito sits high in the Andes, so the air was cool, a surprising start to my equatorial adventure. Day 2. Colombia. Into the heart of the Amazon. A short flight dropped me deep into the Colombian Amazon, near Leticia. Here, the equator runs through one of the most biodiverse regions on Earth. I boarded a canoe and followed a guide along the tributaries of the Amazon River, into a world far removed from roads or time. The silence was broken only by the chatter of macaws and the distant howl of monkeys. The air hung heavy with moisture. Everything felt alive. Villages along the river welcomed us with handmade crafts, dances, and steaming bowls of fish stew. I asked about the equator. Some smiled knowingly, others shrugged. For many, the line means little. Life is dictated by the river, the rain, the forest. Still, one elder told me they believe the equator is where the earth breathes, a place of power and balance. At night, we stayed in a stilted hut above the water, encased in mosquito nets. The jungle never slept. Frogs croaked, insects buzzed, and somewhere far off, a jaguar prowled. This was the wildest part of my journey. I felt tiny and free. Day 3. Kenya. Wildlife, rituals, and equator tricks. From the jungle to the savannah, I landed in Nanyuki, Kenya, where a giant equator sign welcomes visitors just outside town. It's a popular stop for photos, but also for equator-themed science tricks, like the infamous water swirl test. Locals offered demonstrations showing water draining in opposite directions just a few meters apart. It was fun, but the real magic was in the people and the land. I visited a nearby Maasai community, where elders shared how they use the sun's position to guide cattle, tell time, and track season skills passed down for generations. The land was dry, sun-baked, open. Herds of zebra and antelope roamed nearby. I took a walk with a guide who pointed out acacia trees, termite mounds, and distant elephants. The equator was not just a line, it was the thread running through an entire ecosystem. That evening, I helped gather firewood and sat under a sky burning with stars. The sun sets quickly at the equator, but the afterglow lingers in the heart. Day 4. Uganda. Crater lakes and boda rides. Crossing into Uganda, I made my way to Fort Portal, a lush, hilly town near a cluster of volcanic crater lakes. Unlike the flat equator line you imagine, this region undulates with green hills and blue water. I took the boda motorbike taxi to the equator marker outside Cassis. No fanfare, no tourists, just a faded sign and a farmer tending goats nearby. It was a reminder that the equator is everywhere and nowhere. It's part of daily life, but rarely noticed. What stood out most was how rich and fertile the land was. banana plantations, coffee trees, tea fields. The equatorial sun fuels a constant growing season. My host family served me metoke, steamed green banana, and groundnut sauce. The food, like the people, was warm, generous, and real. At night, I stayed in a simple guest house overlooking Lake Nyambuga, a serene crater lake surrounded by mist. In the morning, the call of birds echoed across the water as the sun rose right above the equator. Day 5. Indonesia. Islands of fire and rain. My final stop brought me across the Indian Ocean to Indonesia. The equator crosses the island of Sumatra and slices through the equatorial city of Pontianak in Borneo. I chose the latter for its equator monument and cultural diversity. At the equator monument in Pontianak, I stood on the exact GPS point as the sun passed directly overhead. It was noon. Shadows disappeared. It felt like standing on the spine of the planet. The city itself is a lively mix of Malay, Dayak, Chinese, and Javanese cultures. I sampled street food like satay, mai goreng, and sweet ice sendol. I also visited a Dayak longhouse, where tribal elders spoke of ancient migration routes and how the equator connects people in spirit, if not in daily life. Indonesia's equatorial climate was hot, wet, and thick with scent cloves, rain, gasoline. Everything pulsed with life. As rain hammered the rooftops, I sat on a balcony, sipping kopi tubruk and reflecting on my journey. What the equator taught me. 5 days, 5 countries, one invisible line. And yet, the diversity I encountered was overwhelming. Geographically, the equator links some of the planet's richest landscapes: rainforests, savannas, volcanic highlands, and coral-ringed islands. It's home to more biodiversity than anywhere else on Earth. But culturally, it does something deeper. It links people through rhythm. The 12-hour days, the equatorial sun, the shared connection to land and sky. Whether in Colombia or Kenya, I saw lives built around balance, not extremes. I also realized the equator is not always romantic. It's humid, it's hot, it challenges you. But in that challenge, there's a beauty and invitation to slow down, observe, and connect. It's easy to forget the equator is not just a concept. It's real. It runs through villages, markets, jungles, and cities. And following it means engaging with people who rarely make global headlines, but who live at the center of the earth, every single day, around the middle of the world. I set out to follow an invisible line, and I found a very real world, one that beats with rhythm, breathes with warmth, and exists in harmony with nature. If you ever get the chance to visit the equator, do it. Not just to take a photo with one foot in each hemisphere, but to walk the markets, talk to the locals, eat the food, and feel the sun directly above your head. It's not just a journey across geography. It's a journey into how humanity adapts, survives, and thrives in the heat, humidity, and heart of the world. Inspired by the equator's path. Like, share, or subscribe to follow more global journeys. Know a hidden gem on the equator? Drop it in the comments. There's a whole world right around the middle. Go walk it.